What is the influence of other countries on transgenderism in your country? So do you hear about what's happening in other countries? If there is a self-ID in Greece, for instance, does it influence whether there will be self-ID in Serbia? Or if there is healthcare for self-ID, or the Californian changes that have happened, would that influence Colombia, sort of the different countries? So I'd like to ask that to Olga first.
In my opinion, Serbia, as you maybe know, is not an EU member. But basically, we are in the clutches of European Union, and their laws are mostly formed by trans lobby groups. So basically, if you want to be a member of the EU, you have to adopt their laws. So I think that's the main source from which gender ideology is coming. And actually, in 2009, Serbian Parliament adopted an anti-discrimination bill, which is all good and fine, but the anti-discrimination bill was used to implement gender identity, to enshrine it in Serbian law. So now the protected characteristic is not gender recognition certificate as it is in the UK, it's gender identity. And gender identity is, as we all know, is just some sort of nebulous construct. Everybody can say that they have a gender identity, and basically everybody can say that they are discriminated against based on their inner feelings. So they're always using good laws like anti-discrimination bill to just like a cuckoo's egg, just push their agenda. And that's this is the same. I actually think they will use the same-sex marriage law to implement self-ID. That's something that I think might happen, because the next frontier is to legalize same-sex marriage, which is great. But at the same time, I think they will try to push self-ID along with it. And I think that's how they pushed self-ID in Ireland, I think.
How about you, Victoria? How does influence from other countries play out on this issue?
Well, the influence comes directly from Europe, from Germany and the Netherlands especially, and from international institutions like the American States Organization and the Inter-American Court of Human Rights that have incorporated this view of gender identity. And also the academy that, like I answered to a question, the Colombian Academy looks up to the Anglo-Saxon intellectuals, and the Anglo-Saxon Academy in turn has been just a prey of neoliberalism since the fall of the Soviet Union. So this view extremely individualists, and that is reflected in the principles of the Yogyakarta, and it's completely incorporated by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, by the American States Organization, that affects directly our policy, our culture, and all of our movements. The open society and the funding of international corporations strengthens the transgender agenda. It's seen a lot in the trans grassroots organizations that were before were like grassroots only, but they have now become funded by these international corporations, institutions. Like they're very powerful, they're part of the lobby.
I think that the Netherlands is as much an influencer as it is influenced. I think there's a general kind of admiration for the Netherlands that I would say is very deeply misplaced. And there's a lot of and long time connections academically and socially between the States and here. So, you know, Judith Butler, you know, just all of that kind of stuff. So I think that the Netherlands is as much an influencer as it is influenced by other countries, and that it seeks, you know, like it's distancing itself somewhat from, as the British become more gender critical. There's less alliance seen there, and more of a focus on, you know, and again, you know, some of the stuff that Heather was saying about the link between, that all the women have been saying, that link between pornography and the transgender movement. So in a country where prostitution is legal and where it's already admitted by the police, that every country that makes prostitution legal immediately becomes a trafficking hub. You know, so the Netherlands is renowned as being a trafficking hub internationally, and Germany now increasingly. So yeah, I think it's more a case, it's both ways. You know, I think the Netherlands, in short, influences as much as it is influenced by, but then that would be directly probably from the States more than anywhere else.
I'm going to go back to the queer theory thing. I think what has happened is that there is a dominance of sort of Anglo-American and I suppose continental theory, which is valorized by most countries. It has an imperial sway, and that is the deconstruction of sorry, I can't get, I won't go into queer theory. I'm very tempted to do it, so I have to pull back from that. So I think what I really want to say is there's a strange interrelationship between how people think, the ideas that we have to think with, and a sort of Western, I suppose, money that's invested in promulgating this theory, and of course the global patriarchal structures that are somehow all combined. Now each country will be different, obviously, depending on their own historical context and so on and so forth. Western liberal countries have become very dominant in this, and it's important, I think, that feminists within these neoliberal ideologies fight back against it, because in a sense, being at the forefront of the hegemony of all of this, we then have to also be at the forefront of its resistance.